Hello and welcome. Hold on.
Oh, he's messed it up again.
That's that's three podcasts in a row.
Yeah,
The
and
intro.
you're saying you'll be warming up your voice, but we've been chit chatting for like the last 20 minutes.
So it's your
Before...
fault. There's a chance this might not go out. We'll see. Hello and welcome to another episode of Casting Reflections on Black Mirror, the podcast that takes an episode of Black Mirror and casts reflections on it. With me, as always, is Dan S. Hi, Dan.
Good evening, Dan P. How are you?
I am annoyed this week, not just because I've messed up the intro again. If Charlie Brooker is listening to me, I think for the new series with Tech, can he do a story about someone whose kitchen appliances break down close to each other and then gets really frustrated with the customer service from online retailers when he's trying to buy a new washing machine? Because
it feels like you're speaking from experience a little bit.
did you crack that code?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had a couple of appliances break, and then this is going to be really interesting for everyone. But yeah, I ordered a new washing machine last night. Ordered it for this coming Monday, so at time of recording, it's only 4 days away. Got a text saying, "Yep, it's all booked in. That's brilliant." And then today, I get a text saying, "Oh no, we've pushed it back a week." And so yeah, I've got it, and I'm like, I need to be able to wash your clothes. So I think that's the Black Mirror episode that everyone's calling out for.
Yeah, I think so. And just to rub it in a little bit, because I'm going away on Saturday, I've been using the washing machine quite a lot the last couple of days to make sure I've got enough clothes. Just
Can I borrow yours?
to really, no, it's busy. It's booked out.
How are you?
I'm not too bad. It's the first week of Easter holidays, so it's just been a case of juggling kids, work, life, and trying to avoid eating as much chocolate as possible. Because as I was thinking about this earlier, and obviously this is not as interesting, but you go through that whole new year, new year, new me, fitness, let's get healthy, blah 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 blah. 3 months in, let's everyone have loads of chocolate and let's have it. Let's have it all hung around the house. So we just cancel out the first quarter of the year. So that's what it's felt like this week.
That's interesting, actually, say it, because this will have dated this episode now, because this will go out in a few weeks. But you're right, because also you hit Valentine's Day in February, which most people, what do they tend to do, either go out or cook a meal at home. So that's already the diet out the window. Then, like you said, yeah, sort of March, April, yeah, stuff your face with chocolate.
Yeah, it sucks when I'm trying to train for a marathon, which is always around April time. And it's like just the last hurdle to get over. Here, have loads of chocolate. So, yeah, I didn't succeed this week. I've had a lot of chocolate.
Or you could just not eat any.
I could just not eat any. But if it's there, it's there, isn't it?
Right. We are here to not talk about broken washing machines or your, what's the word, your sweet tooth. We are here to talk about Season 6, Episode 3 of Black Mirror, Beyond the Sea. As always, written by Charlie Brooker, released on the 15th of June. And this was a fairly lengthy episode. Well, actually, here we go. I'm already letting some things out. It felt lengthy. I mean, it's 80 minutes. I know I've said this for a few. I've got mixed views on this one.
Yeah. And you texted me straight away with mixed views, and that sounds like it stayed the same.
Yeah. I'm still a little undecided on the score, so I'm just going to do my usual thing of let you go first with that.
Okay.
So it stars, I guess the big call outs are Aaron Paul as Cliff and Josh Hartnett as David, with Kate Mara as Lana. So Kate plays Aaron Paul's wife, and you've got Auden Thornton as Jessica, who is Josh Hartnett's wife. And you've got a almost blink and you'll miss it appearance by Rory Culkin in there. Now, the first thing I wanted to say to you was I didn't recognise Josh Hartnett at first in the first bit.
I know you said that, and I had to think back to the first time I watched the episode, and I'm not convinced I did, but I kind of know Josh Hartnett from Pearl Harbor and Sin City, and I'm not sure I remember seeing him in any other films, which obviously a long time ago he was in those two films, and he has got a definitely a very different look about him now. So I'm not convinced I did recognise him first time around. But obviously I knew it was him this time.
Yeah, it's funny because I knew he was in it, and then the first sort of 5 minutes, I think on the spacecraft, and when he gets a beard, it looked more like him than it did in the first bit. But yeah, so that's the cast, very very small cast. So we'll go straight into it. now. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say, we briefly spoke about it before we press record. When it started and I saw it was set, I think it was set in the 60s, wasn't it? I thought, well, this is going to be hard to get some Easter eggs in this episode.
I didn't realise that. Yeah, so I guess everything else happened after the Netflix. That's not
Yeah,
after Netflix. After the universe started.
yeah. So, but there are a couple, which we'll come on to as we get to them. So it starts off with David, Josh Hartnett's character. He's with his kids in the living room. They're getting ready to go out for his son's birthday, and he's drawing a picture of his kids, isn't he? Then cuts to Aaron Paul's character Cliff, who is in a so with David, you get the impression it looks like a really nice house, nicely dressed kids. Then you go to Cliff's house, and it looks like he's in the middle of the country, nothing around, and he's trying to cut some logs, isn't he? Firewood with axe, and he's got a son, and he turns around and says, "Still getting used to the grip." So again, you think it might be talking about the axe. Maybe it's a new axe, and you've got to get used to the grip. But yeah, that's the first thing he says, and he starts holding his hand, I think, doesn't he? Cliff and his wife seem distant, but then in contrast, you then get it then flicks back to David. Him and his wife, they seem to have the perfect relationship, don't they? Very model relationship. They go to a cinema, and this is where the first Easter egg that I found was in this
In the
bit.
cinema. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
go on.
there is a poster. I just need to flick down. There is a poster, and on it says Space Fleet. It shows a poster for a film called Space Fleet, which was the film that was within USS Callister, I think, wasn't it? The video that had, so it's a Star Trek
Yes.
replacement.
Yeah.
So that's Easter egg one. So they go to the cinema, and there's a young couple you see looking at them. Then as they're going, this couple come up to him and they stop him. They seem awestruck, and one of them says, "Oh, he seems so real," or "You seem so real," and they ask to touch him. And then they ask him, "Is he asleep up there," pointing up to the sky. So again, obviously something is definitely odd. If you haven't seen it before, you don't know about the episode. At this point, it cuts to Cliff at the dinner table, and his wife and son are eating, but he isn't. Again, reinforcing that there's something not right with these two men. David and his family get home. The kids go to bed. He puts the song La Mer on, and they dance, and he starts to get intimate with his wife, doesn't he? In contrast with Cliff and his wife, who are doing the dishes in a very dreary scene. And I kind of got, since you've said it in a couple of times, again, with David and his wife, the house seems a bit more colourful. And then when you go to Cliff and his wife, just seems dreary, I think is the word.
Yeah.
So as David and his wife are dancing, his watch bleeps and he says he has to go. And the same thing happens with Cliff. They both go off in their respective houses to a chair where they lay in it, and they waken up on a spacecraft. So we now know that then there's either two of them, or as we're going to find out, they've got replicants on Earth and they're actually on this space shuttle up in space. David says there's some damage outside, so Cliff takes off. There's a scene where you see Cliff take off everything metallic, suits up to go outside and make the repair. When it's fixed, they briefly chat, and David, kind of like we were saying, David is surprised that he talks about where they've moved to in the middle of nowhere and is surprised that his wife is happy where they're living because he calls her a butterfly. And they then go back to their replicants, and we find out that they won't come back for a week. So it feels like they only wake up once a week to do some exercise, and
And
if
that
there's damage.
that interaction between them, considering they are the only two on this space shuttle, the interaction feels very distant and very transactional. Like
Yeah,
not two people that are living together. Full stop. It's very kind of limited, isn't it? And they both just want to get back to
yeah.
um, their
Not that they're
replicas.
teammates or anything like they've. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
The next scene shows David waking up in the middle of the night. Well, David's replica, let's say his Earth version, waking up in the middle of the night after hearing some noises, and he goes downstairs and he meets. There are four people in there. They are a cult. I can't remember. I'm sure they get named. Led by Kappa, played by Rory Culkin. and they call him the Machine Man. They grab him, tie him up, and they cut off his hand to prove that he's a machine. And we can clearly then see his hand moving and it's a machine. I think like oil's coming out. They say, yeah, you see, there's nothing natural about him. They then hit him with a hammer, which knocks him back up to the spacecraft where he awakes there. He's quickly panicking. He returns back to Earth and he sees his wife and kids are now in the same room as him. And whilst the cult recognise that his wife and kids aren't machines, Kappa says none of what has occurred in this house occurred without your full knowledge. None of what has occurred in the house with her full knowledge is natural. Man sleeps in the sky while his mechanical image walks the earth, and you share your bed with this abomination. Defying nature must have a cost. And then, in quite a horrible scene, they kill his wife, children, and set fire to him. Now, I think this is where the second Easter egg is, and I think you got this one, didn't you?
Yes. They leave a symbol up on the wall, don't they? That looks like a white bear symbol.
Yeah, I didn't spot that. Even when I tried to find it, I still didn't see it. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't spot it. I read it.
Yeah.
I didn't see it.
So just to sum up, David and Cliff are astronauts in space. They've got mechanical replicants where they then transport their almost like, I don't know, their soul, their essence to. I don't know, but that's what's happening. And there's this cult, because it's in the 60s, this cult who don't agree with that. We cut to Cliff's house. He gets a call to describe what's happened, and that ground control offers them protection, but they're far enough away from California not to be in direct danger. We then find out the cult have given themselves up after the murders, and having his replica destroyed means that he can never return. So David now can never return back to Earth. So Cliff says while he is back on Earth, David is all alone up on the shuttle. And this is where we get a bit more info. We find out they're 2 years into the mission with 4 years to go. So basically, David now is on his own up there, technically, for the next 4 years. Cliff's wife asks, could they make another replica? And Cliff says no, as they were made whilst they were on Earth. And even if they could, what does he have left here? This felt like a sad scene as well, doesn't he? David is having to watch his kids' and wife's funeral from the space shuttle, isn't he? He's seeing it on the space shuttle. On the ship, David slowly becomes more zombie-like and more despondent. And Lana asks Cliff if David might throw himself out the craft. Cliff says he doesn't know, and that because it's a two-man ship and it needs to have two people on, if one of them dies, then basically the other would ultimately die too. And we saw that, didn't we, from the fact that to do the moonwalk, you needed David. So David is the person who stays on the ship while Cliff goes out to do it. Now, this is where the story starts to kind of get its turn. So Lana, Cliff's wife, suggests letting David use his link maybe for an hour just to come back, walk through the forest and feel the air again. They agree to do this, Cliff reluctantly, and you can understand why. And David, while in Cliff's replica, begins crying and he hugs Lana. Back on the ship, Cliff is heartened when he sees David drawing his own house from a memory. And Cliff says, oh, I would love to have you draw this. I would love to have this picture up on the wall at home, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that was true. I got the impression it was true, but I don't know if he was just trying to humour him in terms of giving him something to do.
Maybe, but I guess if he was reluctant for his replica to keep being used, I guess he wouldn't have said it, because the only possible outcome of him saying that was going to be that he kept coming down to Earth and paint it. So so I think it was genuine, unless he just wasn't thinking it through after being nice.
So he says to David, why don't you keep using my link for an hour a week and until you finish the painting. So we see scenes of David going back as Cliff and setting up in their garage and getting all the materials to do this oil painting. As the visits continue, David and Lana grow more familiar, and you can see he starts becoming a bit more infatuated with her, and she enjoys his attentiveness because, like we said earlier, it's clear that David and his wife were fairly close, whereas Cliff and Lana were fairly distant.
I get the impression that David and Lana have more of the similar types of interests because they start like talking about reading, don't they? And some of the things that they do. And actually, there's a shared connection there, which I don't think she gets from her husband. And it was very clear that when he's there, he just goes to bed early and just goes to sleep. And I don't think there's quite the same interaction. They're not talking about stuff like David and Lana do.
Yeah, you're right, because they start talking about like I think it's possibly like some sci-fi books or some
Yeah,
philosophical books, isn't it? Yeah,
yeah.
no, spot on. So David, on one visit, runs out of material, and he convinces Lana to take a trip into town. And they buy. This is actually linked to what you said. Yeah, they buy a book, or she buys a book that he's recommended to her. And while there, the shopkeeper mistakes. Well, I've written here mistakes David for Cliff, but it's ultimately Cliff. And he offers his condolences to David, which makes him step back a bit. Later on in that scene, David then puts on that song again, La Mer, that he was dancing to with his wife, and he starts to try to be intimate with Lana like he was with his, but she pushes him away. And meanwhile, and at the point, I kind of didn't get this bit, while that's happening, Cliff's son has vandalized the painting. And I wasn't sure why he vandalized the painting. It kind of came out of
Yeah,
nowhere,
because
that.
at that point, we don't think the son knows that the replica's being shared because they made a point of saying the kids won't know.
Yeah.
We don't have to tell the kids. So I don't know why he did it because yeah, not sure. Just a random act of vandalism.
So after that, you don't see it, but apparently David has hit Cliff's son. Lana demands he leaves, and Cliff comes back. And initially, he's okay about the fact that he's hit his son.
Just shows you how times have changed, doesn't it?
Yeah, because he's like, the boy's out of control. He needs keeping in line. And anyway, he'll think it's from me. He won't know it's not me. And it's like,
Yeah,
oh, so it's all right.
yeah.
Lana sort of is trying to tell Cliff to not let David use a link anymore. And he asks Lana just to allow David to finish a painting, and then he'll think of something to stop him coming back. But then on one other visit with David using Cliff's link, Cliff looks around the ship and he finds drawings of his wife naked that David's been drawing. Now, we as viewers know that nothing has happened, and he's obviously drawing that from his memory and a fantasy. But he gets quite angry,
As you would, right?
as you would. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Regardless of knowing whether anything's happened or not, if I'm pretty sure if someone drew pictures of your wife or spouse in the nude, I think it would provoke a reaction. I feel.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. When he comes back, Cliff punches David, who says that Cliff is unappreciative of what he has, that his wife is lonely and unsatisfied. Cliff goes back, smashes up the painting, and Cliff confronts his wife, initially thinking she posed naked for him, accusing her of having an affair. She says nothing happened, but that David wanted it to. She said that she didn't want him there again, and she was telling Cliff that she didn't want him there. He hit their son, but he didn't care. And he then says, how did he know that I don't touch you, that you're lonely? And she confesses that she is lonely after moving to nowhere, in the middle of nowhere for him. And then she says for a moment she did wish that David would have touched her. So again, it just shows her sort of crying out for a bit of attention.
And
And
also a confusing situation for her to be in, right? Because this person still looks, well, is her husband's body. It's just got a different person in it. That's a bit of a, screws with your mind. I would
yeah,
have
yeah,
thought.
yeah, I know what you're going to say there. And yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Cliff then stops David using his link. And my final point here, so that I've summed it up really quickly, and that'll be one of my points. One day, Cliff responds to an alert. He gets an alert on his watch. He goes up, and David says there's some damage. He takes off everything, including the key that he needs to use his link to go back to Earth. He's out there doing a spacewalk, but discovers there is no problem. There is no damage. In the meantime, he then comes back, and I can't remember how, because I've got it, but I can't remember how it happens. So does David then come in? Oh yeah, David comes back in and says, "Where's my key? Where's my key?" And then he realizes something, quickly rushes out, uses his link to go back home, starts calling out for his wife. She's not there, and he I know, and he wakes up, doesn't he? And his hands are covered in blood. Sorry, that's it. Yeah, so he uses the link, goes back to Earth, sees his hands covered in blood, goes downstairs. His wife's not calling back to him. And again, you don't see it, but he then just starts breaking down, crying. So the assumption and the fact is that David faked the damage to make Cliff go out to go back and murder his wife and son. It finishes with, as Cliff goes back to the ship, David is sitting down at a table and kicks a seat out to offer him a seat. And that's how it finishes. So, first thing, what was your view on it?
I think this episode has a lot of plot holes
Mm.
in it. So maybe not many Easter eggs, but a lot of plot holes. And I have a lot of questions, which I don't think we're going to be able to answer here.
Well, let's go through them though, because it's the quickest summary of an episode as well.
Yeah, and it feels like you rushed through some really important stuff at the end, but that's how quickly it happened in the episode, wasn't it? It was a massive build up to that sort of 5 seconds at the end, which covered a lot of stuff and then just ended.
Well, that's exactly it. Sorry, and my biggest, I know we've said it before, but I think my biggest gripe is with the ending because it is exactly like that. So, you thankfully you don't see anything graphic, but Cliff goes back, hands covered in blood, goes downstairs, you see his face, he starts crying, goes back up, like pulls a chair out for him. And that is it. That is the final, like you said, the final scene.
Yeah.
Let's go through the questions then.
So, question number 1: what the hell are they doing on that space shuttle? What's the purpose of this thing?
Yeah.
So many years away from Earth. I don't understand that.
Yep.
Where is the food they're eating? Because their bodies still have to survive. It's quite a small space shuttle. They're there for 6 years. Where's the food?
Well, you see the meat, but yeah, how are they got on there 6 years worth of food?
6 years for food.
I can't imagine
worth
it.
of.
And something you've said there, I should point out, yeah, that the thing is they only tend to go back for an hour, I think, to keep exercising, obviously, because otherwise their body's wasting. But yeah, they've then got to eat as well, I guess.
Because there was a point, wasn't there, and when the replicas were back on Earth, where Cliff was sitting down for dinner with his family, and they say a prayer, but he's just sitting there with no dinner in front of him as a replica, and his kids and his wife's eating. And the other thing, and this is the biggest plot hole of all, why couldn't they have replicas in the spaceship
Yes.
and not have their human bodies back home?
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing of all. Why have they gone to all this hassle of doing it that way round? Obviously, there's not a story. There's not a Black Mirror episode if they do it that way round, which is probably the answer. But I want to know the actual answer as to why they couldn't do it that way round.
And I agree 100% with you. And I think that's my biggest issue with this is so when we say replicas, it is the actors. So what you got to remember is just like that young couple in the cinema, they look absolutely realistic, lifelike. So these aren't some shoddy mannequins or shoddy sort of stick men. These are lifelike humanoids, right? And exactly, why can't they be the replicas and they beam up to the replicants? Again, it wouldn't be able to do this story, but if you think about the tech that's gone into making that, and also the fact that they've got gravity on their spaceship, so they've got the tech to do that. And even now, when we send people up, they're floating around.
Yeah, the film they went to watch at the cinema was Chitty Chitty Bang Bang,
Yeah,
which was quite modern for its time.
Yeah.
A flying car, but now
and it's
up.
like you said, they didn't even possibly need people on that ship because of the kind of tech they've got. And like you said, the fact that they've built that tech and that cult group were kind of against that technology. It doesn't quite fit, does it? Because you'd expect the world to be a lot more advanced.
And my next question is around what on earth is he doing at the end? He knows that David wants to go down and see his wife. And he knows he's about to go out into space, the great, big, vast, open space, which wouldn't be too hard for someone who's psychotic to lock him out there. Why on earth did he not take his card with him?
I think there must be something about the metal because they were taking everything metal off. So again, it wasn't fully.
Oh, so they were, because they were quite methodical in putting it on that tray, weren't they?
Yeah.
But I did think to myself, just stick your card in your pocket, or hide it in the spaceship somewhere. don't give that lunatic your badge.
Yeah, and the ending itself. So something I thought at first would happen couldn't, because I thought maybe David might kill Cliff on the ship and then go down and use the replica. But then we do learn that it needs two people, so I guess that could never happen. But then they've said David has got nothing to live for, so why would he care? But for me, it's that bit, the way he just kicks the seat out, and it's almost like, what's going to happen? What is he just say? Right, there we go. Now we can be friends or something. Now it's odd, isn't
Yeah.
it?
And he's obviously been through a hell of a lot. Like, not just the grief, but the isolation, the being so far away. I can't even imagine what it would be like to know that your family are under attack and to know you're helpless in a space shuttle millions of miles away. What he's had to handle in his head, I guess, just made him go a little bit insane. And you can tell that before he borrowed Cliff's card. You could tell that he was beginning to lose it, wasn't he? He was a shadow of himself. He
Yeah,
wasn't speaking properly. He was muttering his words, and obviously this breathed a bit of life into him. But it's just plain evil, isn't it? What he did in the end.
yeah, and that's a bit I can't understand that he would do that.
I almost think the ending might have been a bit better if he went down and just destroyed the replica. Like I feel like that would be a better revenge thing. Actually, let's not kill the wife and kid because that's messed up. But let's just destroy the replica so he has to miss them for a couple of years and kind of go through what he has to go through.
Yeah, so I think that was a couple of ideas I had. Would that be, yeah, that David would do something to Cliff and he would carry on using Cliff, maybe pretend to be Cliff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a one about destroying a replica. Because also the interesting thing is, and that's the thing about the ending that it doesn't play out, is now technically people surely would accuse Cliff of killing his own family. So that's the thing. So he could never almost go back to Earth now either.
Can he be accused of murder when he's a million miles away from Earth?
But we know that they go back into there. I mean, his hands are covered in blood. It's going to be his. Well, is it going to be DNA, or he's killed them? So unless he goes back and properly wipes up the scene, and I guess you could blame the cult, but they're nowhere near where they live. We know that they don't live anywhere near California. So in my head, he's going to be blamed for murdering them.
Which one's going to be blamed?
Cliff, sorry.
Cliff's going to be blamed.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he
Yeah.
can't go back anyway. So it's almost like, now why wouldn't he kill David up on the ship?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. Like, it's bad enough anyway. But Cliff didn't do that to David's family, but David has taken Cliff's family away from him. So that's even worse.
I do think that your instinct would be that your personal survival goes out the window in that moment. I just don't think there's any way that Cliff could spend the next 4 years with him, working with him to bring that spaceship shuttle back down or wherever it is. I think he'd kill him. Like I do honestly think that those two don't survive this trip.
Yeah, yeah. And I get that the ending was supposed to be fairly poignant. I just didn't like it. Yeah, with David sitting there and kicking the chair out, and it's like, now you have to get along. It's like, yeah, it was odd, wasn't it? It just felt odd.
Yeah,
But the
yeah.
biggest thing is the fact that, yeah, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head. Why weren't the replicants up there? That is, when you've got that in your head,
Unless
you
there
can't
was
see
risk that the
past it.
replicant would, like, we don't know what the space shuttle's there, unless the replicants might fail, and then that means that the whole mission fails. So it's safer to put a human on board.
Maybe, maybe.
But the other thing I found quite weird, which they didn't really explore, was neither of the couples seemed to be that phased that there was a replica on Earth in their relationship. They didn't seem to struggle with that concept, did they? Like Lana struggled because she felt lonely, but it had nothing to do with the fact that it was
It
a
was a
replica
replica.
there.
Yeah,
So it felt like that this replica thing kind of replaced them 100%. Like there was no kind of downgrade into their relationship or how it affected their family, because that they could have played on that a bit more, because that's a moral dilemma as well, isn't it? About physically being there and not being there, and
and I do wonder if that may be what's played into Cliff's son being a bit wayward, but it's been 2 years. So it's not like he's only been away for 6 months or he's got the robot, the
Yeah.
replicas be there for like 6 weeks or whatever. It's been 2 years. It's an odd episode. I mean, I really liked the fact that there was only a handful of characters again. I like the focus on the characters. I thought Aaron Paul and Josh Hartnett and Kate Mara, I thought they were really good.
I think Aaron Paul did particularly well considering he's kind of playing two different characters in the same
Yeah, yeah.
thing, right? And you could almost tell which one he was. Like I felt like he played that part very well.
Well, he's playing real him, replicant him, and David being him. Yeah. Yeah. I like the idea of the tech. I thought that was good. It is a good idea, but I just don't think it it was affected well. I thought it was a bit slow, and that's why I'm saying I made the point that considering it's 80 minutes, it's one of the quickest episodes, but I think you could probably rip out half an hour.
Yeah. You could rip out half an hour and explore some of the other things
Yeah.
in that episode that needs to be explored.
For example, I think there were certain things that were rushed, like the ending, but also like the cult. I think there could have been a bit more around them, maybe, because they just appeared for about 5 minutes.
They appeared, killed some people, left. Without really understanding, I guess we kind of get the headline of why, because it was against nature, what they were doing. Yeah, it could have explored that. That could have been more of a threat that they were trying to avoid. And
But also, that just sort of hammers home the fact that the oddity about the how advanced that tech is to then the rest of the world hasn't got any of it. I think it was just frustrating, I think. And it's a shame because I thought for an episode with Aaron Paul in it, I was hoping it'd be, or I was hoping I would have enjoyed it more, let's say that. Because I know there are some people, there's some people I spoke to who really like this episode.
I think I didn't not enjoy it. I did enjoy it. I just think the plot holes really let it down. I just think it could have ended a lot better. Like I like the concept, but I just think it could have been done better.
Yeah, I think like you, the ending, if he'd have destroyed Cliff's replica, I mean, very tough on Cliff, I get it, but that would have made more sense.
Yeah.
I think that would have made more sense.
Because then they could have had a reunion 4 years later or whenever they were back on Earth. Like it wasn't all done, but to just go into cold blooded murder just feels a bit too far.
And it would still mean that on the ship they were going to be hating each other because now Cliff can't get back and
Yeah,
see his family for 4 years. So that
yeah.
hatred would still be there. It's just that it didn't involve murder.
It's unnecessary murder, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you kind of don't get the impression that David would have done that either. Again, I know it's like an 80-minute episode. It just felt out of his character. So basically, he was like a kid for throwing a tantrum.
Do you know what they should have? I've maybe actually thinking about it. I think the first murder was also unnecessary because there would have been a real dilemma if that cult had just destroyed the replica, and Cliff and David were trying to find ways for them to be able to navigate both families, from California or wherever the other place is. And actually, they could have had a real fight on board saying, actually, I'd quite like to, have your replica for like a month so I can go and see my family. Say
Yeah.
as an example. That felt like that might have been a better storyline. It just didn't need the murders.
Yeah, and also, if I guess the murders were there to try and make, they could have played a bigger plot point on this because, like they were saying, his wife, Cliff's wife, was saying, "Do you think he's going to throw himself out?" And he says, "I don't think so." And plus, I hope he doesn't because it needs two people. So maybe it could have added a bit of a suspenseful bit where, for like 10 minutes, you see periods where maybe David was going to do something to himself up there, and Cliff is trying to stop him to make sure that he can
Yeah.
survive. That you could have probably got a lot of suspense out of that. I just felt it felt overly long. Like I said, having said all that, I did enjoy it. The ending, I think, spoiled it for me.
Not a big fan of cold blooded murder.
No, no, I mean, I'm not. No, I didn't feel shocked by it. I think I was gonna say I just felt disappointed. I'm not angry. I'm disappointed.
Yeah.
Is there anything else about the episode?
No, I feel like we kind of covered the main parts. Like I said, it's just the big thing was just trying to put myself in those situations where you're so far away and so helplessly far away from your family when you want to try and protect them. Like that's quite big, isn't it? It's quite
Yeah,
thought provoking. And then what
bec-
you do if you suddenly lose that contact and you're that far away,
yeah.
like I think it would send you mad.
Here's a question for you though: would you want a replicant, and what would you use it for?
Work.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Would I want a replicant? Like it would be handy, right?
Do you know what I was thinking? That I would like two.
Go on.
I would like one in the office, so that
Yeah.
way I wouldn't have to commute. You could just do that. But could you imagine that? Imagine if everyone did that, and you go in, but imagine if some people are working from home. You're just going to see all these bodies, all these people just sitting somewhere.
You could almost like, even if it wasn't at work, if it was just somewhere close to the office location, and then, you could live anywhere in the world. And you say, actually, on Mondays, I'm going to use my replicant to go into work, and I'm just going to plug myself in from, I don't know, Barbados. And I'm just going to live there. That would be, yeah, I think I would. I think I could find make good use of it.
Well, yeah, I think I'd have one at work, but like I said, seeing all the other replicants there if they're not in the office would be weird. And I think I'd like one, say, the other end of the country, or say like in London. So imagine you could just, if you needed to go out, sometimes, especially in the winter, you just can't be bothered to go out. You could just flick there, and then you wouldn't have to worry coming back about missing the last train, or
Yeah, yeah,
if you're
very
too
true.
hungover to get the last train. Or
Well, since I'm marathon training, it'd be quite useful to have one to run the marathon, wouldn't it? Because I
that'd be
assume I don't.
cheating.
I
That's
assume I don't
cheating.
get injured or don't get the same aches and pains. But
That's cheating, though.
you could still experience running the marathon.
That's cheating. You can't do that.
Not if the technology's there.
Yeah. So yeah, I think having a replica would be quite cool. Would you let anyone use yours?
No, no, not at all.
See, he's ruined it. He's ruined it now. This Charlie. Okay. All right. If there's nothing else from you on the episode itself, the inspiration for this came as a reaction to COVID-19 lockdowns in the UK and viewing it as a story about working from home.
Yeah, I can't say I saw the link, but I kind of get
I
it in
love
a
it though.
roundabout way.
I love
Yeah.
it. I love it. I think that's great. Yeah. An initial idea was that a character's family are killed by a climate change induced forest fire. However, the setting was changed to 1969, inspired by the historical setting of Demon 79, which is the last episode in this series. The episode title, Sea of Tranquility, was considered in reference to the fictional television show referred to throughout Black Mirror. It was influenced by the Manson family cult from the 60s. Filming took place for 3 weeks in Whitstable in England, as well as London and Spain.
I don't understand that. So, why do we need to jet out to Spain? What scenes were filmed in Spain?
I don't know.
Did they need to fly across Europe to get any of that?
I don't know. But now you say it makes sense because it's either on the space shuttle, briefly in David's house, and briefly in Cliff's house, isn't it? Maybe Cliff's house is in Spain.
Feels like they could have saved money and just got a nice house in England and done that.
But you've
That
said
feels
that
weird to me.
before. We've had this conversation,
It's
I think, before.
It's
haven't we?
unnecessary expense.
Aaron Paul, a fan of Black Mirror, plays both Cliff and David inhabiting Cliff's replica. He agreed to a cameo in the USS Callister episode under the condition he could appear again. Paul was a big Black Mirror fan and stated that the show had encouraged him to limit his use of technology and social media to the point of not owning a computer.
Oh wow, that's quite interesting.
Yeah. And when filming Cliff's discovery of his family's murder, Paul avoided viewing the set to give realism to his reaction, asking only to know where the cameras were going to be. Yeah, the fact that it's encouraged him to limit his use of technology and social media. I mean, I think we've spoken about this before, and even in our own, sort of outside of the pod, we talked about could we or would we do that? And the answer is obviously no at the moment, but it's
Unless it depends how much money you get paid. Imagine if they said to you, "Do that for 6 years, but then you'd never have to work again and be well off." I think you'd start thinking about it.
yeah.
You would, wouldn't you? Like they've made a big effort to substitute the things that you'd miss. I think I probably would.
Like I keep saying, I like the idea of not using it, but in reality, I'm always going to, I think. And no, I was just gonna say, I do like the last point. I do like it when actors do things like that, like not so that the reaction is genuine to them. Like there was something I was reading somewhere where can't remember what film it is, but in a film, it might have even been a comedy, I think, but somebody screams and the reaction by the other actors was genuine because they didn't know he was going to scream. So I love it when little things like that happen.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay.
Got one more interesting fact that I've just read on IMDb. It is mentioned that the ship is 4.7 AU from Earth. I don't know what AU stands for, but it means it takes light 30 minutes to travel from. So it's 30 minutes. 30 minutes of light travel to get that far, which means that as they're swapping back and forth, it means they're swapping at faster than the speed of light.
It's even more impressive tech.
Yeah, that tech is pretty impressive, isn't it? If it can travel that fast. Even the watch signal, like when that spaceship needs him, it's not taking half an hour to get down there. It's instant.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was actually just thinking, what was to stop David going into Cliff's body and then just going out and committing a load of crimes as well?
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. Yeah, he could have... But then can you get in trouble with the law when you're that far away from Earth? There's going to be a loophole in there somewhere.
Well, they'd be arrested when they got back.
But they're physically not present in the world. They're not on any sort of...
But it's them doing it, though, isn't it? It's him in that body doing it.
Yeah, but you know what it's like when a criminal's in a different country. It takes them ages to kind of get them arrested, doesn't it? Imagine not being on the planet when they're committing murders.
Yeah.
There's definitely a loophole. I reckon they get out.
If there's any legal representatives listening to this, let us know. Actually, maybe they could be represented by that Scillane law firm company from Joni's Awful. Right then, what's your score?
I'm going to go 6.
Yeah, I had 6.
Did you? Oh, I think it's the first time we agreed on one. But yeah, I think it was good. Enjoyed it. Too many plot holes to be any higher.
I flirted with a 7, but yeah, I had 6 in my mind. And again, solid episode in terms of the idea, the actors. Just the plot hole, and like I keep saying, when you've got the main one in your head, it's hard to see past the episode, then, isn't it? And the ending for me. So yeah, a 6. There you go. We agree. Next episode is Maisie Day. Do you remember that one?
No, I don't. I'd watched it, but I feel like, not to big up our next podcast episode, I feel like it was uneventful. So I'm gonna have to watch it again to even remember it.
I think we've got 3 more episodes left, Dan, of this until next year. So yeah, there's 2 more episodes of season 6, and we've got Bandersnatch. So we'll have to give this one or the next one. We'll have to give it a good score. We'll have to finish we'll have to give a perfect 10. We've not given a perfect 10 yet, have we?
I think I got close with a few 9.8s and 9.9s.
Yeah, but you love your points, don't you? You love your point scores.
Yeah,
so.
I don't think anything should really get a 10 out of 10, should it?
I think I've given a 9.6. I haven't got the scores in front of me again. So maybe I'll do a tally before. And the other thing I was thinking about, I'll say it here and now. I was thinking when we finish, I was going to put your top 5 episodes against my top 5 episodes and then get people to vote who's got the better top 5 episodes.
Yeah, agreed. Let's do it.
All right, look, thank you for listening. Anything before we go down, anything from yourself?
So I've got one more interesting fact. Can I add one more interesting fact in there? During the first murder, Sharon Tate was a notable victim. She starred in Valley of the Dolls, which Lana is later seen reading as a book.
Oh, there you go. Anything else you want to say before we go, Dan?
No more.
So I will say, check out Just Football, where you'll hear Dan and I speaking on there about all things football, along with our co-host Dave. I also want to say hi to the PodPack Collective and go check them out. Details will be in the show notes. And we will see you next time for episode 4, Maisie Day.
1, 2, 3, 4. If I want your opinion, I will give it to you. Come on, check what we've got, 'cause you need it. Don't make us get a spark and force